You're all terminated. Effective immediately. The words cut through the conference room like a blade through silk. Sharp. Final. Irreversible. Naomi Cross stood at the head of the mahogany table, her cream blazer wrinkled from 3 hours on a plane, her first-class ticket still folded in her right hand, like evidence at a crime scene. The ticket that had started everything. Seat 1A, Atlantic Airways Flight 447, paid in full, denied on sight. Around the table, 9 board members sat frozen in their leather chairs. Some gripped the armrests. Others leaned forward, mouths slightly open as if waiting for the punchline that would never come. The afternoon sun slanted through floor-to-ceiling windows on the 57th floor of the Apex Holdings building in Manhattan, casting long shadows that made the room feel smaller than it was. In the doorway stood 3 people who'd been summoned without warning. Captain James Thornhill, 54, his uniform still crisp from this morning's flight. Jennifer Walsh, 34, senior flight attendant, her blonde ponytail pulled so tight it looked painful. Tyler Bradford, 45, ground crew manager, his Atlantic Airways badge still clipped to his belt. All 3 stared at Naomi like she'd materialized from nowhere, which, from their perspective, she had. 4 hours ago, she'd been the black woman they'd escorted off Flight 447. The woman they'd told didn't fit in first class. The woman whose credit card they'd examined like it might be stolen. The woman they'd removed in front of a cabin full of witnesses while David Whitmore, 62, silver-haired and smug, settled into her seat with a glass of champagne. Now she stood in their boardroom. Now she held their careers in her hands. Jennifer's face had gone from its usual peachy glow to the color of old paper. Captain Thornhill's jaw worked silently, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Tyler Bradford just stared at the floor as if hoping it might open up and swallow him. In the corner of the room, David Whitmore himself sat in a guest chair, called in as a valued customer to provide his perspective on the incident. His expensive suit suddenly looked too tight. His Rolex caught the light as his hand trembled slightly on the armrest. The realization was dawning on his face like a slow sunrise. The woman he'd dismissed, the woman whose seat he'd taken, the woman he'd watched being removed while he sipped Dom Perignon, wasn't just any passenger. She owned part of this company. Bernard Ashford, the CEO of Apex Holdings, cleared his throat. Ms. Cross, perhaps we should discuss this privately before making any hasty decisions. Naomi's eyes shifted to him. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Authority has its own frequency, Mr. Ashford. In exactly 3 hours, the world will know what happened on Flight 447. Every news outlet, every social media platform, every single person who's ever been told they don't fit somewhere they paid to be. But let me take you back to where this started. She paused, letting the silence stretch like a wire about to snap. 4 hours ago, Gate B-17. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. When your crew decided my money wasn't green enough for Seat 1A. 4 hours earlier. 6:47 a.m., Atlanta. The morning rush at the world's busiest airport moved like a river around Naomi Cross as she walked toward Gate B-17. Coffee shops pumped out the smell of espresso and burnt sugar. Travelers in business suits speed-walked past families dragging rolling suitcases. Departure boards clicked and refreshed, announcing delays and gate changes in a rhythm that felt almost musical. Naomi had made this walk 100 times. Atlanta to New York. LaGuardia, Tuesday morning. She usually took the 7:15 a.m. flight because it got her into the city by 9:30, perfect timing for a 10 o'clock meeting. Today's meeting was with investors interested in Cross Technology's new cloud security platform. She'd spent the weekend preparing her pitch deck, running the numbers, anticipating questions. She wore dark jeans, a white blouse, and a comfortable navy blazer. No designer labels, no jewelry except a simple silver watch her mother had given her when she graduated from MIT. Her natural hair was pulled back in a professional style that took exactly 7 minutes to achieve. She carried a leather laptop bag over one shoulder and pulled a small black rolling carry-on behind her. She looked like what she was, a successful professional traveling for work. She did not look, in her own estimation, like someone who needed to prove she could afford a first-class ticket. But she'd learned over 38 years of being black in America that looking like something and being treated like something were two different things entirely. At gate B17, the priority boarding lane was nearly empty. Most first-class passengers had already boarded during the pre-boarding for families and passengers needing assistance. Naomi pulled out her phone, tapped twice, and her digital boarding pass illuminated the screen. Atlantic Airways Flight 447, Seat 1A, First Class. The gate agent, a Hispanic woman in her 30s with a name tag reading Rosa Martinez, smiled when Naomi approached. "Good morning, let me scan that for you." The scanner beeped. Green light, approved. "Welcome aboard, Ms. Cross. Enjoy your flight." "Thank you." Naomi returned the smile. Rosa's eyes were kind, professional. There was no hesitation, no surprise, no moment of doubt, just standard service. Naomi would remember this interaction later, would remember Rosa's face when everything that came after started to unfold. Rosa would remember it too, would testify about it in fact, would say under oath that Naomi Cross had been polite, professional, properly dressed, and properly ticketed when she boarded Flight 447, but that was later. Now Naomi walked down the jetway, her carry-on wheels humming against the ribbed floor. The tunnel smell of jet fuel and recycled air, the slight upward incline, the distant sound of an engine powering up somewhere on the tarmac. Ahead of her, an elderly white couple moved slowly. The man, probably in his 70s, walked with a cane. His wife held his elbow, guiding him gently. They took small, careful steps. Naomi slowed her own pace, giving them space. No reason to rush. No reason to crowd them. The plane wasn't going anywhere without all its passengers. At the aircraft door, the elderly man paused to catch his breath. "Damn knee," he muttered. "Take your time, sir," Naomi said from a respectful distance behind them. The man's wife turned, saw Naomi, and her eyebrows lifted just slightly. "Oh, are you first class too?" The question wasn't rude exactly, but it wasn't neutral either. There was surprise in it, a kind of reflexive shock that someone who looked like Naomi might be headed to the same cabin as them. "Yes, ma'am," Naomi said evenly. "Well." The woman's smile was tight, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Good for you. Good for you." As if Naomi had won something instead of purchased something. As if her presence in first class was a stroke of luck rather than a choice backed by $2,000 and a frequent flyer account. Naomi had heard variations of this phrase her entire life. Good for you for getting into MIT. Good for you for starting your own company. Good for you for succeeding despite... And here the sentence usually trailed off, but the unspoken end was always the same. Despite being black. Despite being a woman. Despite not being what we expected. She didn't respond. Just waited while the elderly couple turned left into the first-class cabin. Then she followed her carry-on, bumping gently over the threshold where jetway met aircraft. And that's when it started. A flight attendant stood at the door, young, maybe 26, with warm brown eyes and a name tag that read Carlos Reyes. He smiled as Naomi entered. "Good morning, welcome aboard." His smile was genuine, not performative, not surprised, just welcoming. Naomi made a mental note of his name. Carlos. In a few hours, she'd be very glad she remembered it. "Good morning," she replied and stepped into first class. The cabin hit her with that specific luxury that premium seating always had. Cream-colored leather seats arranged in a 2-2 configuration. Real wood paneling along the walls, not the plastic imitation you saw in economy. Ambient lighting that somehow made everyone look rested, even at 6 in the morning. The air smelled like expensive cologne and fresh coffee and something floral, maybe lavender, from the hot towels they distribute before takeoff. 8 rows of first class, 16 seats total. Most were already occupied. Business people settling in with laptops and newspapers. A woman in row 3 typing furiously on her phone. The elderly couple from the jetway making their way slowly to row 5. Naomi's seat was in row 1, left side. Window, seat 1A. The best seat on the plane if you cared about such things. First to board. First to deplane extra legroom closest to the front galley for fastest service. She'd selected it specifically 3 weeks ago when she'd booked the flight paying an extra $85 for the premium position. She located the row and stopped. Someone was already sitting in 1A. A white man, probably early 60s, with carefully styled silver hair and a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He'd already made himself comfortable. His carry-on and Hermes bag Naomi recognized from its distinctive orange and brown pattern was stowed in the overhead bin. His shoes were off expensive Oxford loafers positioned neatly under the seat in front of him. He held a crystal champagne flute in his left hand, already a third empty. The Wall Street Journal was spread across his lap, open to the business section. He looked in every possible way like someone who fit exactly where he was. Naomi checked her phone again. Boarding pass still showed seat 1A. No mistake. She took a breath, kept her voice friendly, and approached. "Excuse me, sir. I think there might be a seating mix-up. This is my assigned seat." The man looked up from his newspaper. His eyes traveled from her face to her laptop bag to her rolling carry-on to her comfortable flats, then back to her face. The scan took maybe 3 seconds. 3 seconds in which Naomi felt herself being appraised, categorized, and found wanting. She'd felt this look before, countless times. In department stores where security had followed her. In conference rooms where clients had assumed she was someone's assistant. In restaurants where hosts had tried to seat her near the kitchen. It was a look that said, "You don't match my expectations for this space." "I sit here every Tuesday and Thursday," the man said, returning his eyes to his newspaper as if the matter was settled. "You must be mistaken." His tone was casual, not angry, not even particularly rude, just certain. The certainty of a man who'd spent his whole life being told yes and had forgotten that no was even possible. Naomi felt the familiar warmth start in her chest, the warmth that came from a lifetime of moments exactly like this one. But she kept her voice level. "I have seat 1A confirmed on my boarding pass. Would you mind checking yours?" The man, still not looking up, took a slow sip of his champagne. Set the glass down with deliberate care in the holder beside his seat. Finally, with visible reluctance, he lifted his eyes to meet hers. "Young lady," he said, and that phrase, young lady, carried more condescension than most full sentences. "I've been flying this route for 6 years. I'm a Diamond Premier Elite member. They hold this seat for me. I understand you may have an arrangement." Naomi said, each word measured, "But I purchased this specific seat 3 weeks in advance. I have confirmation right here." She turned her phone screen toward him, displaying her boarding pass clearly. "Seat 1A. He barely glanced at it. "System error. Happens all the time with online bookings. Talk to the gate agent. I'm sure they can sort you out with another seat." Sort you out. As if she were a problem to be solved. A glitch in his routine. Behind Naomi, another passenger cleared his throat impatiently. A white man in his 40s, already holding his own boarding pass, annoyed at the holdup. "Excuse me," he said, not quite polite. "Some of us are trying to get to our seats." Naomi stepped aside slightly, letting him pass, but didn't move away from row 1. She looked back at the silver-haired man who had returned his attention to the Wall Street Journal as if she'd already left. "Sir," she said, her patience beginning to fray around the edges, "I'd really appreciate if you could just verify your boarding pass." I'm certain there's been a mistake, but I'd like to resolve it before takeoff. There's no mistake on my end." He turned a page of his newspaper, the paper crinkling loudly. "I've sat in this seat every week for 6 years. I have an understanding with Atlantic Airways. Now, if you'll excuse me, you're blocking the aisle and other passengers are trying to board. An understanding. An arrangement. These words that meant rules apply to other people, not to me." Naomi was about to respond when she heard footsteps approaching from behind, heard a voice that carried just enough authority to make people turn. "Is there a problem here?" Naomi turned to see a flight attendant approaching. A woman, maybe 34, with blonde hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. Her makeup was immaculate. Her uniform was crisp. Her name tag read, "Jennifer Walsh, Senior Flight Attendant." And her eyes, Naomi noticed immediately, were already slightly narrowed, already making assumptions about who was causing the disruption. "Yes," Naomi said, keeping her tone professional. "This gentleman is sitting in my assigned seat." Jennifer looked at the silver-haired man, then at Naomi, then back at the man. The calculation happened in her eyes instantly. Older white man in expensive suit, comfortable and settled, clearly irregular. Younger black woman in casual business attire standing in aisle with a carry-on, clearly not a familiar face. Decision made. "Mr. Whitmore is one of our most valued Diamond Premier Elite members," Jennifer said, as if this explained everything. As if elite status was a trump card that beat confirmed seat assignments. "I'm sure we can find you another excellent seat." So, the man had a name. David Whitmore. Naomi filed it away. "I don't want another seat," Naomi said, her voice still level but now with an edge of steel. "I want the seat I paid for. 1A. Jennifer's professional smile tightened. "Ma'am, please don't make this difficult." There it was. That word. Difficult. The word they always used when someone had the audacity to expect what they'd paid for. Difficult. As if asking for basic fairness was an act of aggression. "I'm not making anything difficult," Naomi replied. "I'm standing here with a confirmed boarding pass for seat 1A, asking why someone else is sitting in it. That seems like a reasonable question. Let me see your boarding pass." Naomi handed over her phone. Jennifer took it, looked at the screen. Really looked this time. Naomi watched the micro-expressions flicker across Jennifer's face. Saw the moment when Jennifer registered that the boarding pass was legitimate. Seat 1A. Confirmed. Paid in full. For just a second, something that might have been doubt crossed Jennifer's features. But then she glanced at David Whitmore sipping his champagne, utterly relaxed. A known quantity. A regular customer. Someone who made her job easier by always being pleasant and tipping well and never causing problems. And she looked at Naomi. An unknown. A potential complaint. A disruption to the smooth operation of her cabin. Jennifer's face hardened. Decision reinforced. "There seems to be a system error," she said, echoing David's earlier words. "These things happen with online bookings. Mr. Whitmore has been a loyal customer for years, and we have an arrangement for his preferred seating. I can offer you seat 3C, also a window seat, and we'll credit your account 15,000 bonus miles for the inconvenience." Inconvenience. The word felt like a slap. This wasn't an inconvenience. This was theft. Polite, smiling theft, but theft nonetheless. "That's not an inconvenience," Naomi said quietly. "That's you taking what I paid for and giving it to someone else. I selected 1A specifically. I paid $2,184 for this ticket for this seat. I'm not interested in compensation for giving up what already belongs to me." Around them, other passengers were starting to notice, starting to watch, starting to pull out phones. David Whitmore set down his newspaper with a sigh of theatrical patience. He looked at Naomi the way someone might look at a child throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. Pitying, exhausted, slightly amused. "Look," he said clearly, "there's been some kind of error with your booking. But I've had this arrangement with Atlantic Airways for years. I think we all know how this should be resolved. You take another seat, they give you some miles, everyone's happy. Why make this into something it doesn't need to be? Something it doesn't need to be." Translation: why make this about what it's actually about? What this needs to be, Naomi said, looking directly at him, is that I sit in the seat I paid for. That's all. That's the entirety of what this needs to be. A woman in row 2, white, early 40s, with auburn hair and intelligent eyes, looked up from her laptop. She'd been watching. She spoke up, her voice carrying clearly through the cabin. "Excuse me, but she's showing you a legitimate boarding pass. Shouldn't you be asking to see his boarding pass too?" Jennifer turned sharply toward the woman. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you. It concerns all of us," the woman replied. "We're all watching this happen. And what I'm seeing is that you're taking her word that she has the wrong seat without checking if he has the right one." The woman was right. Jennifer hadn't asked David for any documentation, hadn't asked him to prove his claim, had simply believed him because... Why? Because he was David Whitmore Diamond Premier Elite, because his suit was expensive, because his skin was white. Jennifer's face flushed. "Ma'am, I've offered a very generous solution. If you continue to be difficult about this, I'll have to ask the captain to address the situation." Difficult. That word again. The universal code for your not accepting our unfairness quietly enough. "I would appreciate speaking with the captain," Naomi said, "because I'd like someone to explain to me clearly why Mr. Whitmore's claim to this seat is being taken at face value while mine, despite documentation, is being dismissed." David stood up abruptly, all pretense of patience evaporating. "This is ridiculous. I sit here every week. Every single week. I'm not giving up my seat to some random passenger who clearly doesn't understand how premium cabin service works." Some random passenger. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Random, Naomi repeated softly. "Is that what I am? Not a confirmed ticket holder, not a paying customer, just random." "You know what I mean?" David said, but his face suggested he was starting to realize how his words sounded. "Do I?" Naomi asked. "Please, explain what you mean. I'd love to hear it." Silence. David's mouth opened, closed. Whatever word had been on his tongue, he'd swallowed it. But everyone in the cabin knew what that word might have been, what category he'd almost named out loud. Jennifer stepped between them, physically inserting herself into the space. "Both of you, please. Let's all take a breath." "Ma'am," she looked at Naomi, "I'm asking you one final time. Will you accept alternative seating? No. Then I'll need to call the captain. Please do." Jennifer pulled out her phone, spoke into what looked like a communication app. Her voice was low, but Naomi caught the words, "Captain Thornhill. We have a situation in first class. Passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions. Passenger refusing to comply." That's what Naomi had become in Jennifer's narrative. Not a passenger with a legitimate complaint. Not a customer being treated unfairly. A problem. A refusal. A disruption. More passengers were boarding now, squeezing past the confrontation in the aisle. Some looked annoyed at the delay. Some looked uncomfortable, like they sensed something wrong but didn't want to get involved. Some, Naomi noticed, had their phones out. Recording. A young couple, white, probably in their late 20s, wedding rings still shiny and new. The husband had his phone angled toward the scene. The wife whispered something to him. He nodded and tapped his screen. The little red light in the corner indicated he'd started recording video. An older black man in row 4, maybe 65, lowered the magazine he'd been reading. His eyes found Naomi's. Something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. He knew exactly what was happening here. Had probably seen it happen in one form or another countless times before. Carlos, the young flight attendant who'd greeted Naomi at the door, appeared from the front galley. He'd been listening, watching. His face showed distress, like he wanted to say something but didn't have the authority or the courage to contradict his senior colleague. Jennifer noticed him. "Carlos, I've got this. Go check that the rear cabin is boarding properly." Carlos hesitated. His eyes met Naomi's for just a second. She saw the apology there, the recognition that this was wrong. But he was junior, new, probably still in his probationary period. Speaking up could cost him his job. He left. Jennifer turned back to Naomi, her expression now fully hardened into bureaucratic authority. "Ma'am, the captain is on his way. I'm giving you a final opportunity to make this easy. Accept seat 3C or face the possibility of being removed from the flight entirely." There it was, the threat that had been hovering under everything since this started. Comply or be removed. Give up what's yours or lose everything. Naomi looked at Jennifer. At David Whitmore, still standing, still holding his champagne glass, still utterly confident he would win this. At the other passengers watching. At the phones recording. She thought about her mother, Diana, who'd worked 3 jobs and still found time to teach Naomi that respect wasn't negotiable. Who'd told her over and over, don't let them make you small. Don't let them convince you that your worth is up for debate. She thought about every black girl who'd be on a plane someday who'd pay for a seat and wonder if she'd have to fight for it. She thought about the fact that it was November 17th, 2025, and apparently some battles from 1955 still needed fighting. "I'll wait for the captain," Naomi said. Jennifer's expression tightened. She spoke into her phone again. "Captain Thornhill, please come to the first-class cabin immediately." Then into her communication app, quieter, but not quiet enough. "And let's have security on standby." The cockpit door opened with a pressurized hiss. Captain James Thornhill emerged, and his presence immediately changed the atmosphere in the cabin. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the kind of natural authority that came from 3 decades of being in command. His hair was graying at the temples, his uniform was immaculate with 4 perfect stripes on each shoulder, and his expression suggested he was already annoyed before he fully understood the situation. He scanned the first-class cabin in seconds, saw Naomi standing in the aisle, laptop bag over her shoulder, carry-on beside her. Saw David Whitmore seated in 1A champagne in hand, newspaper folded in his lap. Saw Jennifer with her arms crossed, her body language screaming vindication at having called for backup. Saw the phones, multiple phones, pointed at the scene, and made his assessment. What's the problem here? His voice was deep, used to being obeyed, used to ending conflicts simply by arriving. Jennifer jumped in immediately, speaking fast, establishing her narrative first. "Captain, this passenger is refusing to follow crew instructions. She's claiming that seat 1A is hers, but Mr. Whitmore, as you know, has an arrangement for that seat. I've offered alternative seating and compensation. She's refused both and is now delaying departure." Naomi opened her mouth to defend herself, but Captain Thornhill held up one hand. "Stop. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to lower your voice." "My voice is at normal volume," Naomi said. "I haven't raised it once." "Ma'am." His tone got harder, flatter. "I'm the captain of this aircraft. When my crew tells me there's a disruptive passenger, I trust their judgment. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we have a problem?" The bias was so casual, so automatic, that it almost took Naomi's breath away. He hadn't asked what happened. hadn't asked to see her boarding pass, hadn't asked David to verify his claim to the seat. He'd simply walked out, looked at the scene, decided who was the problem, based on who looked like they fit and who looked like they didn't, and made his ruling. 30 seconds. That's all it had taken for Captain James Thornhill to decide that Naomi Cross was the issue. Captain Naomi said, forcing her voice to stay measured, "I'd like to show you my boarding pass." "That won't be necessary. Jennifer has already reviewed the situation. Jennifer has not checked Mr. Whitmore's boarding pass. She's taken his claim at face value while questioning mine despite documentation." Captain Thornhill's expression didn't change. "Mr. Whitmore is a Diamond Premier Elite member and a valued regular on this route. I've known him for years. If he says this is his seat, I believe him." The woman from row 2, the one with auburn hair who'd spoken up earlier, stood up. "Excuse me, Captain, but I've been watching this entire interaction from the beginning. This woman has been completely polite. She has a legitimate boarding pass for 1A. She showed it to your flight attendant. All she's asking for is the seat she paid for. This isn't right." Captain Thornhill turned to her. His face was still set in its professional mask, but Naomi saw something shift in his eyes when he looked at the woman. She was white, well-dressed, clearly educated, professional, harder to dismiss. "Ma'am, I appreciate your input, but this is a crew matter. I'm going to have to ask you to sit down." "This is a fairness matter," the woman said. "And as a passenger on this flight, I have a right to voice concern when I see another passenger being treated unjustly." Ma'am, Captain Thornhill's voice took on a warning tone. "If you continue to interfere, you'll be considered disruptive as well." The threat landed. The woman hesitated. Naomi saw the calculation happen in her eyes, the same calculation every person makes in moments like this. Is this my hill to die on? Will speaking up help? Or will it just get me removed too? She sat down, but she kept her phone out, still recording. The older black man in row 4 cleared his throat. "Excuse me, Captain. My name is Kenneth Wright. I'm a retired attorney, and I've witnessed everything that's happened here. What's taking place is discrimination. Clear and documented discrimination. I will be willing to testify to what I've seen." Captain Thornhill looked at Kenneth. Another witness. Another complication. His shoulders tensed. "Sir, please sit down, or you'll be asked to deplane as well." Kenneth met Naomi's eyes, held her gaze. 30 years of civil rights law in that look, 30 years of fighting these exact battles. He sat down slowly, but before he did, he said clearly, loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear, "My name is Kenneth Wright. I am a witness. I have seen everything." Captain Thornhill turned back to Naomi. His patience, which had been thin to start with, was now completely gone. "Ma'am, final opportunity. Accept the alternative seating that's been offered, or we will be forced to call security to remove you from this aircraft." Naomi looked at seat 1A. Her seat. The seat she'd selected 3 weeks ago. The seat she'd paid an extra $85 to reserve. The seat where David Whitmore now sat. His champagne refilled his face, showing the smug certainty of a man who'd always won these battles because the system was built to let him win. She thought about compliance, about taking 3C and swallowing the injustice and getting to her meeting in New York and moving on with her day, about choosing peace over principle. She thought about her mother's voice. Never let them make you smaller than you are. Never let them convince you that your worth is up for debate. She thought about every video she'd seen of black people being dragged off planes, thrown to the ground, humiliated in front of crowds, all for the crime of expecting equal treatment. She thought about the phones recording right now, about how this moment would be documented, about how she needed to be very, very careful because she knew that if she showed any anger, any volume, any emotion at all, the narrative would shift. She'd become the aggressive one, the threatening one, the one who needed to be subdued. So she kept her voice perfectly level, perfectly calm. "Captain, I have a confirmed reservation for seat 1A. I have documentation. All I'm asking is that you verify both boarding passes before deciding who stays and who goes. That's not an unreasonable request. That's basic fairness. This isn't about fairness. This is about flight operations and following crew instructions. Then show me the instruction that says elite members can take confirmed seats from other passengers." Captain Thornhill's face reddened. "Ma'am, you're being deliberately difficult. I'm being deliberately persistent in asking for what I paid for. If you see those as the same thing, that's the problem." The captain pulled out his radio. "Jennifer, call security to gate B17. Jennifer already had her phone out. She spoke into it, her voice carrying through the now silent cabin security needed at gate B17. Passenger removal. Female black, approximately 35 to 40. Potentially aggressive. Potentially aggressive. Naomi hadn't raised her voice once. Hadn't made a single threatening move. Had simply stood in an aisle holding a boarding pass asking for a seat. But Jennifer had called security, had specified her race, had labeled her as potentially aggressive. Every black person in that cabin felt those words land like stones. Naomi closed her eyes for just a second, felt the weight of every year of her life compress into this moment. Every time she'd been followed in a store. Every time someone had clutched their purse in an elevator. Every time she'd been told in 1,000 small ways that she didn't fit. When she opened her eyes, her voice was quiet, but absolute. "Call whoever you need to call. But everyone here is watching, everyone recording is documenting. When this is over, when the truth is clear, every person who participated in this will have to answer for it." Captain Thornhill stared at her. And maybe, just maybe, some small part of him wondered if he'd misjudged this situation. But it was too late. Security was already on the way. 2 airport security officers arrived 4 minutes later. 4 minutes during which Naomi stood in the aisle motionless while other passengers squeezed past her to reach their seats. 4 minutes during which Jennifer made a show of helping David Whitmore with his newspaper, refilling his champagne, doing everything possible to demonstrate that he was the valued customer, and Naomi was the problem. 4 minutes during which phones recorded every second. The security officers entered through the forward door. The first was a black man, probably late 30s, with kind eyes and a name tag reading M. Johnson. The second was a Hispanic woman, early 30s, her expression professional and neutral, L. Torres. Officer Johnson saw the scene immediately. Saw Naomi, a black woman surrounded by white flight crew and a white captain. Saw the phones recording. Saw the other passengers watching with that particular kind of uncomfortable tension that meant something was very wrong. His eyes met Naomi's. Something passed between them. Instant recognition. Not of each other, but of the situation. He'd seen this before. Different plane, different people, same story. Captain Thornhill approached the officers, his voice low but still audible to the first few rows. "We need this passenger removed. She's refused to comply with crew instructions and is delaying departure for 143 passengers." Officer Johnson looked at Naomi, not at the captain, at her. "Ma'am, can you tell me what's happening here?" First person to ask her. First person to want her side. Naomi gestured to her phone, still showing her boarding pass. "I have a confirmed reservation for seat 1A. That gentleman," she nodded toward David Whitmore, "is sitting in it. I've asked him to verify his boarding pass. He's refused. The crew decided to remove me instead of checking whether his claim is valid." Officer Johnson took her phone, looked at the boarding pass. "Legitimate. Confirmed. Paid in full. This shows you're assigned to 1A. "I know," Naomi said. Jennifer stepped forward. "There's a system error. Mr. Whitmore is a long-standing Diamond Premier Elite member with a standing arrangement for that seat." Officer Torres spoke for the first time. "A standing arrangement that overrides confirmed reservations." Jennifer's face tightened. It's complicated. It doesn't seem complicated, Torres said. It seems straightforward. She has documentation for this seat. Does he? No one answered that. Captain Thornhill, losing patience, raised his voice slightly. Officers, I don't have time for a debate. The passenger has been offered alternative seating and generous compensation. She's refused. She's now delaying a commercial flight. I'm formally requesting her removal under Federal Aviation Regulation 121.5, authority of the pilot in command. Officer Johnson looked at Naomi with something that might have been sympathy. Ma'am, I understand this feels unfair, but if the captain requests removal, we're legally obligated to comply with that request. Do you understand? Naomi understood perfectly. She understood that the system was built this way, that the captain had absolute authority, that she could be in the right and still lose, that justice and law weren't always the same thing. I understand, she said, but I need everyone here to understand what's actually happening. I'm being removed from a seat I paid for. No one has checked his boarding pass. No one has asked him to prove his arrangement. The only person being asked to prove they fit here is me. And you? She looked at Officer Johnson directly. You know why? Officer Johnson's expression tightened. He did know why. He was a black man in uniform. He'd lived it too. But he had a job to do. Kenneth Wright, the retired attorney in row 4, stood up again. His voice was firm, authoritative, the voice of someone who'd argued in front of judges. Officers, this is discrimination. I'm a witness. I've seen everything. This woman has been polite, has provided documentation, and is being removed for no reason other than the color of her skin. I will testify to that under oath. Captain Thornhill whirled on him. Sir, sit down now, or you will be removed as well. Kenneth looked at Naomi, made a calculation, sat down slowly, but not before saying loud and clear, My name is Kenneth Wright. I'm retired, but still a licensed attorney in Georgia. I'm a witness. Everyone should note that. The woman from row 2, the one with auburn hair, spoke up. I'm Sandra Price. I'm recording everything on my phone. I'm also a witness. The young couple from row 3, the ones live streaming, spoke almost in unison. We're streaming this live. 8,400 people are watching right now. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted. This wasn't just an airline removing a passenger anymore. This was documented. This was witnessed. This was becoming something larger. Officer Torres spoke quietly to Officer Johnson. Marcus, this feels wrong. Officer Johnson. Marcus nodded slightly. But he said to Naomi, ma'am, if you refuse to leave voluntarily, we'll have to escort you. That could result in charges. Interfering with a flight crew. I'm trying to help you avoid that. He was being kind, genuinely trying to give her an out. But the out meant giving up, meant accepting the injustice, meant proving to every young black woman watching that sometimes you just have to take what they give you and be grateful it wasn't worse. Naomi felt the trap close around her. Resist, physically, get arrested. Get arrested, get charged. Get charged, become the story, instead of the injustice being the story. She thought about the footage, about how it would look, about how she needed this to be absolutely, unquestionably clear that she was the victim here, not the aggressor. Under protest, she said clearly, loudly enough for every phone to catch it, I will leave this aircraft. But I need everyone to note I am complying to avoid escalation, not because this is right. I have not been disruptive. I have not been threatening. I have not raised my voice. I am being removed for being black in first class. The words hung in the air like an accusation and a prophecy. Captain Thornhill's face went red. That is completely inappropriate and defamatory. Naomi cut him off. Her voice still calm, still controlled. Then prove me wrong. Show me Mr. Whitmore's boarding pass. Show me the policy that says elite status overrides confirmed seating. Show me documentation of this arrangement you keep mentioning. Can you do that? Silence. No. Naomi picked up her carry-on handle. That's what I thought. She looked at David Whitmore one last time. He'd gone very still in seat 1A, his champagne forgotten in his hand. The smugness had drained from his face, replaced by something that might have been the beginning of unease. He was looking at all the cameras, starting to realize his face was in all these videos. "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Whitmore," Naomi said. "I hope that seat was worth it." She walked toward the exit spine, straight chin level. Officer Torres walked beside her, not touching her, giving her respect. Officer Johnson followed behind. As Naomi passed Carlos, the young flight attendant, from the door, he whispered, "I'm so sorry. This is wrong." Naomi stopped for just a second. "What's your name, Carlos?" "Carlos Reyes. Remember this moment, Carlos. Remember what you saw here." "I will," he said. And she believed him. Naomi walked off Flight 447, walked back up the jetway, walked away from the seat she'd paid for the meeting she'd prepared for the simple expectation of being treated like a human being. Behind her, she could hear the cabin erupting into conversation. Could hear passengers arguing. Could hear someone saying, "That was wrong. That was so wrong." But ahead of her was something else. Ahead of her was a phone call to her attorney, and a plan that would make everyone on that plane regret this day for the rest of their careers. Naomi sat in the gate seating area, her laptop bag beside her, her carry-on at her feet. Through the window, she could see Flight 447 being prepared for departure. Ground crew loading baggage, fuel truck pulling away, jetway about to detach. It was 7:54 a.m. She'd been removed from the plane at 7:47. 7 minutes. That's how long it had taken for her Tuesday morning to derail completely. She pulled out her phone. Notifications were already flooding in. The live stream from row 3 had gained viewers, 47,000 and climbing. The TikTok video from Sandra in row 2 was already over 80,000 views in less than 10 minutes. Twitter was starting to buzz with a hashtag someone had created, hashtag Flight 447. But Naomi wasn't looking at social media yet. She was opening her contacts, finding Hannah Frost, her general counsel at Cross Technologies. The call connected on the second ring. Naomi Hannah's voice was alert despite the early hour. "I thought you were on a plane." "I was. They removed me." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "Why?" "Because a white passenger wanted my seat, and they decided he deserved it more." "Please tell me you're joking." "I'm not." "And Hannah, it's all on video, multiple angles. It's already going viral." She could hear Hannah moving, probably sitting up in bed, probably already reaching for her own laptop. "Tell me everything, every detail." Naomi walked her through it. The initial confrontation with David Whitmore, Jennifer Walsh's immediate bias, Captain Thornhill's automatic assumption that Naomi was the problem, the security call, the removal. When she finished, Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then Naomi, "This is bad. For them, I mean. This is very, very bad for Atlantic Airways." "I know. Do you want to sue? Because we can sue. We can sue them into next year. I want to do more than sue. I want to change things so this never happens to anyone else." How Naomi thought about it. Thought about her mother Diana, who'd worked 3 jobs to put her through school. Diana, who'd never flown first class in her life, but had taught Naomi that respect wasn't about where you sat. It was about refusing to accept being treated as less than human. She thought about being 9 years old at the community pool, feeling eyes on her the entire time. About being 14, being followed through a department store by security. About being 17, having to retake a test to prove she hadn't cheated. about being 22 at MIT walking into the computer science building and being asked if she was looking for someone, about building Cross Technologies from $50,000 in savings into a company valued at $2.3 billion, about creating jobs for 400 people, about proving every single person wrong who'd ever told her she didn't fit, and still, at 38 years old, still having to fight for a seat on an airplane. "Hannah," she said, "pull Atlantic Airways' corporate structure. Find out who owns them. Find every shareholder, every board member, every executive. I want to know who's responsible for this culture. You're thinking about going after the whole company. I'm thinking about accountability. They didn't just kick me off a flight. They've been doing this. There's a pattern. I can feel it. And we're going to expose it." Hannah was silent for a moment. Then, "Okay. Give me an hour. I'll pull everything I can find. One more thing. Find discrimination complaints filed against them. I want to see if this has happened before. Naomi, those are usually sealed, then find a way to unseal them. I'm not just fighting for me anymore. I'm fighting for everyone who's been told they don't fit." After she hung up with Hannah, Naomi called her VP of Communications, Elena Rodriguez. Elena answered immediately. "Boss, I just saw the video. Are you okay? I'm fine. But Atlantic Airways won't be. I need you to monitor social media. Track every mention, every video, every comment, document everything. But don't issue any statements yet. Let it build organically. It's already building. The hashtag's at number 7 trending. And Naomi." Some of the comments are brutal. People are calling for boycotts, calling for firings. The airline's social media is being flooded. Good. Let them panic. I want them to feel the heat before I make my move. Rosa Martinez, the gate agent who'd scanned Naomi's boarding pass, approached hesitantly. "Ms. Cross, I'm so sorry about what happened. Your boarding pass was valid. I scanned it myself. What they did was wrong." Naomi looked up at her. "Rosa, in your experience working this gate, have you seen this happen before?" Rosa hesitated, looked around, lowered her voice. "Yes. Not often, but yes. Usually it's elite members claiming seats that aren't theirs. Crew usually sides with the elite passenger. I've seen it happen more to passengers who aren't white." "Would you be willing to document that officially?" Rosa's eyes widened. "I could lose my job, or you could help fix a broken system. Your choice. But I promise you, if you help me, I'll protect you." Rosa thought about it. "Let me think about it, but Ms. Cross, I hope you sue them. I hope you win." Kenneth Wright. The retired attorney from row 4 found Naomi 10 minutes later. He'd gotten off the plane, deliberately missed his flight. "Ms. Cross, I wanted to give you my contact information. I saw everything that happened. I'd like to help in any way I can." Naomi took his card. Kenneth Wright, attorney at law, retired but still listed with the Georgia Bar. "Why did you get off the plane?" she asked. "Because some things are more important than being on time. I'm 67 years old. I marched in Selma. I fought for civil rights before you were born. And I watched you stand in that aisle with more composure than they showed you. And I thought, I'm not just going to be a witness who stayed silent." Naomi felt unexpected emotion rise in her throat. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll fight this. All the way. Because people like me, we did our part. But the fight isn't over. Your generation needs to finish it." Sandra Price from row 2 also came looking for Naomi. "I recorded everything. Do you want me to send it to you?" "Please. And one more thing. Would you testify about what you saw?" "Absolutely. What they did to you was wrong. I have 2 daughters. I don't want them growing up in a world where that's acceptable." Naomi's phone buzzed, Hannah calling back earlier than expected. Naomi, you're not going to believe this. Atlantic Airways is a subsidiary of Apex Travel Holdings, publicly traded. And guess who owns 4.7% of Apex through the Cross Technologies Venture Fund? Naomi's breath caught. We do. You do. From that 2019 investment in the travel tech sector. You probably forgot about it because it was part of a diversified portfolio. But it's there. Which means you have shareholder rights. Naomi's mind began racing. Shareholder rights. That meant access to internal documents. That meant ability to call for investigations. That meant leverage. Hannah, what are my options? Oh, Naomi, your options are extensive and about to become their nightmare. By 8:30 a.m., Sandra's TikTok video had crossed 1 million views. By 9:00 a.m., the live stream from row 3 had been reshared 14,000 times. By 9:30 a.m., hashtag Flight 447 was trending number 3 nationally, and hashtag Atlantic Airways was number 7. Naomi sat in an airport coffee shop laptop open, watching the internet catch fire. The videos were everywhere. Different angles of the same scene. Naomi standing calmly in the aisle. Jennifer Walsh calling security and specifying black female, potentially aggressive. Captain Thornhill never asking to see David Whitmore's boarding pass. The moment Kenneth Wright stood up to declare himself a witness, Sandra filming openly. The young couple live streaming to thousands. The comments were brutal. This is 2025 and we're still seeing this? That captain needs to be fired immediately. Everyone defending the airline, would you give up your seat? The way she kept her composure while they humiliated her. That's strength. Why didn't she just take another seat? This comment was downvoted into oblivion. They kicked her off her seat. The injustice is insane. News outlets were picking it up. CNN had pushed a notification Black Tech CEO removed from first-class flight. Video goes viral. The Root had posted a thread. They kicked her off her own seat. Then found out who she was. Forbes was already running the angle Naomi Cross, CEO of $2.3 billion Cross Technologies, forcibly removed from Atlantic Airways flight. Atlantic Airways' social media accounts were being destroyed. Every post, every tweet, every Instagram photo was flooded with comments. What about hashtag Flight 447? When are you going to address removing a passenger from her paid seat? I'm canceling my account and switching airlines. This is discrimination, plain and simple. The airline's PR team scrambled to respond. At 10:15 a.m., they posted an official statement. Atlantic Airways is aware of an incident involving Flight 447 from Atlanta to New York this morning. We are conducting a thorough investigation into the matter. Atlantic Airways does not tolerate discrimination of any kind. We are reviewing all policies and procedures related to this event. We will provide updates as our investigation progresses. The statement was immediately ratioed. The top reply with 48,000 likes. Conducting an investigation. We can all watch the video. We saw what happened. This isn't complicated. Naomi received an email at 10:22 a.m. from Bernard Ashford, CEO of Atlantic Airways parent company Apex Holdings. Subject Flight 447 incident. Ms. Cross. I have just become aware of the situation that occurred on Flight 447 this morning. I want to personally apologize for your experience and invite you to discuss this matter directly with me. This does not reflect the values of Atlantic Airways or Apex Holdings. Please call my office at your earliest convenience so we can address this situation appropriately. Sincerely, Bernard Ashford, CEO, Apex Holdings. Naomi forwarded it to Hannah with a single line. He's trying to contain this privately. Don't respond yet. Let him sweat. Elena called. Boss interview requests are pouring in. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, The New York Times, Washington Post. Everyone wants to talk to you. What do you want me to tell them? Tell them I'll make a statement soon, but not yet. I want Atlantic to make the first move. You're playing this perfectly. Every hour of silence from you makes them more nervous. That's the idea. The numbers kept climbing. By 11:00 a.m., the combined videos had 8 million views. The hashtag was trending #1 worldwide. Flight 447 had become a movement. Naomi arrived at Cross Technologies headquarters at 11:30 a.m. The building was a sleek glass structure in downtown Atlanta, 12 stories of innovation that she'd built from nothing. Her employees knew something had happened. Word had spread. As she walked through the lobby, people nodded with respect, tinged with concern. In the main conference room on the 8th floor, her core team was already assembled. Hannah Frost, 44, white woman. Princeton law graduate who'd left a comfortable partnership at a major firm to be Cross Technologies' general counsel. Fierce, brilliant, loyal. Elena Rodriguez, 36, Hispanic VP of Communications, who'd built Cross-Tech's brand from scratch. Street smart and strategic. James Sullivan, 51, white CFO, who'd walked away from Goldman Sachs to help Naomi build something meaningful. Numbers genius with a conscience. Dr. Marcus Chen, 39, Asian American Chief Data Officer, MIT PhD, who could make data tell stories that changed minds. Simone Baptiste, 47, Black woman HR Director. 20 years in corporate human resources, who'd seen every type of workplace discrimination and knew how to document it. The conference table was covered with documents, laptops, open screens showing analytics and legal filings and financial data. Hannah started. Okay, here's what we have. Atlantic Airways is fully owned by Apex Travel Holdings. Apex is publicly traded, market cap $14.7 billion. Through your 2019 venture investment in travel technology, Cross Technologies owns 4.7% of Apex. That's significant, James said. That's enough for real shareholder rights. You can demand board meetings, access internal documents, push for investigations. Hannah pulled up a document. More interesting, there are 47 pending discrimination complaints against Atlantic from the past 3 years. 47. All settled quietly with non-disclosure agreements. None went to litigation. None made the news. Naomi felt anger rise in her chest. They've been paying people to stay quiet. Exactly. And those NDAs probably unenforceable if we can prove a pattern of civil rights violations. Silencing victims of discrimination is itself illegal. Elena shared her screen. Social media update. The videos have passed 8 million combined views. Sentiment analysis, 78% supporting you, 14% defending the airline, 8% saying you should have accepted another seat. What about the airline's stock? James pulled up a chart. Apex Holdings opened at $142 a share this morning. It's currently at $136.50. That's down 3.8%. Market cap loss of approximately $560 million. Naomi let out a low whistle. In 4 hours. In 4 hours. Investors are panicking. If this continues, shareholders will demand heads roll. Dr. Chen had been working quietly on his laptop. He looked up. I've been running an analysis. I scraped social media mentions of Atlantic Airways discrimination complaints over the past 5 years. Found 147 public complaints with similar patterns to what happened to you. 89 involved passengers of color being reseated or removed. 23 specifically mentioned first-class disputes with elite members taking assigned seats. He pulled up another screen, and I cross-referenced the elite passengers named in complaints. 12 names appear multiple times. David Whitmore. He's been named in 9 previous incidents. The room went quiet. 9, Naomi said. David Whitmore has done this 9 times. 9 times that people complained publicly about. Probably more that went unreported. And Atlantic Airways knows. They've compensated passengers. They've moved people. but they never stopped him from doing it again. Simone spoke up, her voice hard with controlled anger. I pulled EEOC complaints from employees. Atlantic has 23 open investigations from their own staff. Flight attendants, ground crew pilots, all claiming racial discrimination in work assignments. She distributed printouts. Black flight attendants say they're put on less desirable routes. Hispanic ground crew say they're passed over for promotions. There's a cultural problem here, not just isolated incidents. Hannah leaned forward. So here's our strategy. We have shareholder rights. We can demand an emergency board meeting under Clause 14B to investigate discrimination. We need documented evidence of practices that harm company reputation or violate federal law. We have both. The viral videos are documentation. The stock drop is harm. The EEOC complaints are federal violations. How fast can we trigger it? Naomi asked. By law, they have to convene within 48 hours of formal request. But here's the aggressive move we demand it happens today. Emergency clause. We argue ongoing social media crisis constitutes emergency requiring immediate action. Naomi thought about her mother, about Diana's words. When you fight, fight smart. Use their rules against them. Make them answer for what they've done. Do it. I want that board meeting within 6 hours. They'll fight it. Let them. Every hour they delay is another hour of Flight 447 trending. Their stock will keep dropping. They'll fold. James nodded. I've been watching unusual trading. Someone's buying Apex stock on the dip. Big positions. Someone thinks this blows over. Naomi smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. They're wrong. Elena interrupted. One more thing. Sean King wants to talk to you. Ben Crump's office called. NOACP wants a statement. Schedule them for after the board meeting. I want resolution before I speak publicly. The team spent the next 2 hours building the case. Hannah drafted the emergency shareholder meeting request, citing specific clauses and attaching documentation. Elena prepared communications strategy. James ran financial projections showing how much more damage the stock could sustain. Dr. Chen compiled his data analysis into a presentation showing clear patterns of discrimination. Simone documented the EEOC complaints with careful legal precision. At 1:37 p.m., Hannah sent the formal request to Apex Holdings' board of directors. Subject line Emergency Shareholder Meeting Request under Clause 14B. The response came faster than expected. At 2:14 p.m., Hannah's phone rang. She put it on speaker. Ms. Frost, this is Gerald Matthews, General Counsel for Apex Holdings. We've received your emergency meeting request. This is highly irregular. It's also completely legal under your corporate bylaws, Hannah said. 4.7% ownership gives my client the right to call for emergency investigation into practices harming company reputation. Have you seen your stock price in the last hour? Silence on the other end, Mr. Matthews. You can agree to the meeting, or we can file this formally with the SEC and watch your stock drop another 5% while you argue procedure. Your choice. More silence. Then, what time? 4 p.m. Your headquarters. Conference room. Board attendance mandatory. That's less than 2 hours. Then I suggest you start making calls. We'll be there. Hannah hung up. Looked at Naomi. You sure you want to do this in person? We could do it virtually. Naomi stood up. No. I'm going there. I'm sitting in that room. I'm looking them in the eye. If they want to tell me I don't fit somewhere, they can do it to my face. What airline? Elena asked with a slight smile. Naomi returned it. Not Atlantic. While the team prepared for New York, Naomi sat alone in her office. 38th floor corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline. On her credenza sat photos her mother Diana at Naomi's MIT graduation, her team at the Cross Technologies ribbon-cutting ceremony, Her company's logo, the one she'd designed herself, representing the intersection of innovation and accessibility. She held the boarding pass from Flight 447 in her hands, still folded, still crisp, physical proof of what had happened. And she thought about how she'd gotten here. Age 9. Charlotte, North Carolina, 1996. Summer. Her mother had taken her to the community pool, public pool open to all residents. The white woman at the entrance had looked at them. "This pool is for residents only." Diana had shown their resident card. "We live at 340 Brookshire." The woman's face had changed. "Oh, I didn't realize any residents lived there." Any residents, meaning black families. They'd swum that day. But Naomi had felt eyes on her the entire time. Her mother's posture had stayed straight the whole time, hadn't let the stares touch her composure. That night, Diana had sat 9-year-old Naomi down. "Baby people are going to question whether you fit in places. Their doubt says nothing about you. It says everything about them. Don't let them make you small." Age 14. Different memory, same lesson. Shopping for a homecoming dress. Department store in Charlotte. Security guard following them through the racks. Her mother had noticed, had stopped, had turned to face him. "Is there something you need?" "Just doing my job, ma'am. Your job is to follow paying customers, or just black ones." The manager had come over, had apologized, but the damage was done. The assumption had been made. Age 17. Advanced placement computer science class. Only black student. Only female student. Teacher Mr. Donovan handing back tests. Naomi had scored 98%. "Naomi, did you have help with this test?" Help, meaning did you cheat? She had to retake the test. Supervised, watched, monitored like a criminal. She'd scored 99% the second time. Mr. Donovan had said nothing. No apology, no acknowledgement. But Naomi had learned excellence doesn't protect you. Sometimes it makes the suspicion worse. Age 22. MIT undergraduate. Walking into introductory computer science lecture. 300 students. Professor doing roll call. Got to her name Naomi Cross. She'd raised her hand. "Here." "Oh." The professor's face had shown surprise. "I had you marked as Charles Cross in my roster." Computer error. But his face told the truth. He'd assumed Charles was a man's name, had assumed someone white would answer. Age 28. The breaking point. Performance review at Microsoft. She'd exceeded every target, delivered every project, received praise from clients. But her manager had said, "You're too aggressive in meetings, not a culture fit. Maybe consider roles in different departments." Different departments, meaning departments with more black employees, meaning we don't want you here. That night, Naomi had sat in her apartment and cried. First time she'd cried about work in years. Then she'd stopped crying, had opened her laptop, had started writing a business plan for her own company. If they wouldn't make room at their table, she'd build her own table. Age 29. Founding Cross Technologies. $50,000 in savings. Every penny she had. Tiny office in Atlanta. Couldn't afford Silicon Valley rent. First hire Hannah Frost, lawyer who believed in her vision. Second hire James Sullivan, CFO who left Goldman Sachs to join a startup. Built a team of people who'd been overlooked. Women passed over for promotions. People of color told they weren't culture fits. Built company culture from scratch. Core values written on the wall. Merit not pedigree. Ideas not appearance. Excellence not conformity. Age 31. First major investment pitch. Venture capital firm. All white, all male. Software for supply chain optimization, one had said. Seems like a crowded space. Not for enterprises in developing markets, Naomi had replied. Do you really understand those markets? Translation as a black woman. Do you understand real business? They'd passed on the investment. 6 months later, Salesforce had become her first Fortune 500 client. The VC firm had called back. Would you consider another round of funding? Naomi had said no. Present moment. Her office. Naomi looked at the boarding pass again. Realized Flight 447 was just the latest iteration. She'd been fighting for her seat literal and metaphorical her entire life. But this time was different. This time she had power, real power, resources, leverage. This time she could do something about it, not just for herself, for every black girl in AP computer science being accused of cheating, for every black woman in meetings having ideas stolen, for every black professional told they're not a culture fit, for everyone who'd been told in 1,000 small ways, this seat isn't for you. Her phone rang. Hannah. They agreed. Emergency board meeting at 4 p.m. Apex Holdings headquarters in New York. You need to be on a plane in 30 minutes if you want to make it. Naomi checked the time. 2:43 p.m. Book me the next flight. Not Atlantic. Already done. Delta. You're on the 315. First class. Seat 2A. Of course. Seat 2A. Same seat number, different airline. The symmetry was almost funny. She stood up, grabbed her laptop bag, looked at the boarding pass from Flight 447 one more time. Then she put it in her pocket. She was going to need it. Delta flight, 10:25 to New York. Boarding at Gate T4. The contrast started immediately. The gate agent, a black woman probably in her 50s, smiled with genuine warmth when Naomi approached. Ms. Cross, we've heard about what happened to you this morning. We're so sorry. We're honored to have you fly with us. No side-eye, no suspicion. Just professional courtesy. Thank you, Naomi said. And we've upgraded you to first-class complimentary. No charge. Just our way of saying we try to do better. Walking down the jetway felt different this time. No elderly couple questioning her presence. No loaded looks. Just the normal sound of her carry-on wheels against the ribbed floor. The flight attendant at the door, a Hispanic man probably in his early 40s, greeted her warmly. Welcome aboard, Ms. Cross. Anything you need, just let me know. Normal service. The way it should be. Seat 2A. Window, first row. Same position as this morning, but the experience couldn't have been more different. Naomi settled in, pulled out her laptop, connected to in-flight Wi-Fi before they even pushed back from the gate. Twitter was on fire. Hashtag Flight 447 was still trending #1, now with over 18 million tweets. The story had gone international. BBC American CEO removed from flight in discrimination incident. The Guardian Airline passenger removal sparks outrage. CNN had it as their lead story. But more interesting were the new developments. Atlantic Airways employees were speaking out. An anonymous account at Flight Attendant Anon Y work for Atlantic. What happened to Naomi Cross is standard practice. Elite passengers always win. People of color always lose. We're told not to make waves. I'm making waves. The tweet had 340,000 likes in 2 hours. More employees piling on. At Atlantic Insider, 8 years with this company. Seen this happen dozens of times. Management ignores complaints. At Pilots Union 447, we've filed union grievances about discriminatory seating practices. They disappear into HR black holes. Corporate response was failing. Atlantic had issued a second statement at 12:30. We are committed to diversity and inclusion. This incident does not reflect our values. Investigation ongoing. The statement was getting destroyed in the comments. Your values were on display in that video. Investigation equals waiting for this to blow over. You don't investigate discrimination. The DOT does. Political figures were weighing in. Senator James Baldwin. What happened to Naomi Cross is unacceptable. I'm calling for DOT investigation into Atlantic Air discriminatory practices. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is what racism looks like in 2025. Not always violence. Sometimes it's being told you don't fit in spaces you paid for. Celebrity support was building. Kerry Washington. I've been Naomi Cross. Any black woman who travels has been Naomi Cross. This needs to change. LeBron James. They kicked her off the plane. Watch her shut down the whole airline. Hashtag Flight 447. Oprah respect is not negotiable. Period. Naomi received a text from Elena Boss Gayle King wants an exclusive for CBS. Primetime slot. Your call, Naomi replied. After board meeting. If I have something to announce, she gets first interview. Another email from Bernard Ashford. Second attempt. Ms. Cross, I understand you're invoking shareholder rights. I want to resolve this directly before the board gets involved. This could damage both of us. Let's find a mutually beneficial solution. The board doesn't need to be involved in what could be handled privately. I'm prepared to offer significant compensation and policy changes. Please call. Naomi forwarded it to Hannah. He's trying to settle quietly. Don't respond. Hannah replied. Stock down 7% now. Shareholders calling for his head. He's panicking. Naomi smiled. Let them panic. She worked on the flight. Hannah had sent her prep documents. Board member profiles. Bernard Ashford, CEO, White 58. Vulnerable if stock keeps dropping. Victoria Chang, CFO, Asian American 52. Data-driven. Might be ally. Robert Thornton, COO, White 61. Old guard. Will defend status quo. Patricia Delgado. Chief Legal Officer, Hispanic 47. Risk-averse. Will fear lawsuits. Michael Harrison, Board Chair, White 68. Former Delta CEO. Might understand PR disaster. Sarah Mitchell, Board Member White 55. HR expert. Could go either way. James Wilson, Board Member White 49. Investor rep. Only cares about stock price. 3 others, all white, all male, all over 60. Naomi's strategy was clear. Appeal to Victoria with data. Appeal to Patricia with legal risk. Appeal to Michael with industry reputation. Appeal to James with stock price. Appeal to Sarah with HR ethics. The old guard would resist. She needed 6 of 9 votes. Tight, but possible. A woman in the seat next to her, older white, probably early 70s, leaned over. Excuse me, are you Naomi Cross? Naomi tensed slightly. Here we go? Yes. I saw what happened this morning. I'm 71 years old. I marched in Selma in 1965. I thought we'd gotten further than this. I'm ashamed we haven't. She handed Naomi a handwritten note. Thank you for not backing down. The note read, Stay strong. History is watching. Unexpected emotion tightened Naomi's throat. Thank you. I raised 3 daughters. I told them the world was getting better. Watching that video this morning, I wondered if I'd lied to them. Then I saw you stand firm, and I thought maybe the world gets better because people like her refuse to accept it staying the same. After the woman went back to her book, Naomi sat with those words. History is watching. She'd been thinking about her fight as personal as about justice for herself. But it was bigger. It was about everyone watching. Everyone who'd been told they didn't fit. Everyone who'd need courage to stand up next time. The flight attendant who'd greeted her earlier approached. His name tag read, Angela Diaz. Ms. Cross, I just want to say what happened to you this morning was wrong. A lot of us in this industry have seen things like that. Someone needs to call it out. I'm glad you're fighting back. Angela, do you like working for Delta? Yes, they treat us with respect. All of us. Not just some of us. That's how it should be everywhere. Angela nodded and moved on. 2 flights, same day. Atlantic treated her like a criminal. Delta treated her like a human. Same person, same money, same Tuesday. The only difference was company culture. Culture was a choice. Atlantic had chosen wrong. The plane descended into New York. 3:15 p.m. Departure landing at 5:47 p.m. with headwinds. The board meeting was at 4:00 p.m. She'd be late. But that was fine. Let them wait. Let them wonder if she was coming. Let the anxiety build. Looking out the window at Manhattan's skyline, Naomi felt something harden in her chest. Apex Holdings headquarters was on 57th Street, 57th floor. In less than an hour, she'd walk into that room. They thought she was coming to complain, to ask for an apology, to negotiate a settlement. They didn't realize she was coming to dismantle. Naomi's flight landed at 5:47 p.m. She texted Hannah, "Landed. Be there in 20." Hannah replied, "They're waiting. Board is nervous. Bernard tried calling me 3 more times. Offered public apology policy overhaul compensation package. But not accountability," Naomi typed. "Correct. He wants to settle quietly. Fire a few people, make a statement, move on. That's not how this works." Taxi to Apex Holdings took 17 minutes. Midtown traffic was brutal, but her driver was skilled. She arrived at 6:09 p.m. Over 2 hours late for the 4:00 p.m. meeting. Perfect. The building was one of those glass and steel monuments to corporate power. Revolving doors, marble lobby, security desk that looked like a fortress. Naomi Cross for the executive board meeting. The security guard's eyes widened slightly. He knew who she was. The video had reached even here. 57th floor, Ms. Cross. They're expecting you. In the elevator, Elena and Hannah briefed her. Hannah carried her litigation bag stuffed with documents. Elena had her tablet with social media analytics ready. The story's on every major outlet now, Elena said. Front page of New York Times website, lead on CNN. International coverage. Stock is down 9.2%. DOT announced formal investigation, Hannah added. NAACP filed complaint. Senator Baldwin introduced a bill requiring airlines to report discrimination incidents monthly. Naomi nodded. So it's already bigger than one company. You made it structural. That's what happens when someone with a platform refuses to stay quiet. 57th floor. The elevator opened to a reception area that screamed money. Original art on the walls. Leather furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Manhattan that probably cost more per square foot than most people's homes. The receptionist, white woman 30s, looked uncomfortable when she saw Naomi. She'd definitely watched the video, Ms. Cross. They're ready for you in the executive boardroom. Down the hall, last door on the right. Walking through the corridor, Naomi passed offices with their lights still on. Employees working late. Some looked up as she passed. Some stared. One young black woman, maybe an assistant or junior analyst, caught Naomi's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." Naomi nodded. Outside the boardroom, 2 security guards stood at attention. A corporate lawyer waited, nervous energy radiating from him. "Ms. Cross, I'm Gerald Matthews, General Counsel for Apex Holdings. Before we begin, I want to clarify the scope." Hannah cut him off. "The scope is defined by Shareholder Rights Clause 14b, Emergency Investigation into Discriminatory Practices. My client has documented evidence and legal standing. Anything else is your attempt to limit damage. Let's not waste time." Gerald blinked, unused to being interrupted. "The board disputes the characterization of events." "There's video," Naomi said, flatly. "Multiple angles. Millions of views. They can dispute reality all they want. Facts don't care." Gerald looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. "Very well. But I want it noted that Atlantic Airways maintains this was a misunderstanding. Note whatever you want, Hannah said. The DOT investigation will determine what it actually was. Gerald opened the boardroom door. The room was exactly what Naomi expected. Long mahogany table, 14 leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the city lit up in the evening darkness. 9 board members sat around the table looking various degrees of uncomfortable. And along the wall, sitting like students called to the principal's office, Captain James Thornhill, Jennifer Walsh, and Tyler Bradford. When Naomi walked in, time seemed to pause. Captain Thornhill's face drained of color. Jennifer Walsh's hand flew to her mouth. Tyler Bradford stared at the floor like he wished it would open up and swallow him. Recognition and horror washed over their faces in real time. The black woman from this morning, the one they'd removed, the one they'd called security on, the one Jennifer had described as potentially aggressive. She was here, in their boardroom, at their emergency board meeting, which meant she was someone important, someone with power. David Whitmore sat in a guest chair in the corner, called in to give his perspective as a valued customer. His expensive suit looked too tight now. His Rolex caught the light as his hand trembled on the armrest. His smug confidence from this morning had evaporated. Bernard Ashford, CEO of Apex Holdings, stood at the head of the table. 58 years old, silver hair, expensive suit, the look of a man who'd run companies for decades and thought he'd seen everything. He clearly hadn't seen this coming. "Ms. Cross," he said, trying to regain control of the room. "Thank you for coming. I want to start by saying how deeply sorry I am." Naomi held up one hand, stopped him mid-sentence. "Mr. Ashford, I don't need your apology right now. I need your attention. May I present?" Bernard blinked. He'd expected her to accept his apology to negotiate to settle. Yes, of course. Please." Naomi walked to the head of the table. Didn't ask permission, just took the position, claimed the space. Bernard had to sit down, had to yield the floor. Alpha move established. Hannah distributed 3 ring binders to each board member. They opened them to find Tab 1 timeline of Flight 447 with video stills. Tab 2 witness statements from Sandra Kenneth, Carlos Rosa. Tab 3 financial impact, including stock price and social media metrics. Tab 4 pattern analysis showing 47 pending discrimination complaints. Tab 5 employee EEOC complaints showing 23 open investigations. Tab 6 comparative airline policies. Tab 7 proposed remediation plan. Naomi began. Her voice was calm, professional, and absolutely unshakable. "Good evening. My name is Naomi Cross. At 7:08 this morning, I boarded Atlantic Airways Flight 447 with a confirmed first-class ticket for Seat 1A. At 7:54 a.m., I was forcibly removed from that aircraft, not because I was disruptive, not because I violated policy, but because a white passenger wanted my seat and your crew decided he deserved it more." Michael Harrison, board chair, former Delta CEO, spoke up. "Ms. Cross, we've all seen the video. It's disturbing, but surely there's context we're missing." "There is context," Naomi said. "The context is that this wasn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern." Tab 4 47 pending discrimination complaints in 3 years, all settled quietly with NDAs. "You've been paying people to stay silent about company-wide discrimination." Patricia Delgado, Chief Legal Officer, was flipping through her binder, her face tightening. "These complaints, I wasn't fully aware of the scope." Victoria Chang, CFO, looked up sharply. "That's because legal and HR have been burying them. I've been asking for comprehensive discrimination data for 2 years. I was told it was immaterial to financial reporting." She looked at Bernard accusingly. "You told me that personally." Naomi pressed on. Ms. Chang is correct. This isn't a PR problem that appeared this morning. It's a cultural problem you've been hiding, and now it's cost you $1.4 billion in market cap in 9 hours. James Wilson, the investor representative, leaned forward. Let's be clear about what this is. You're a shareholder using a personal grievance to force corporate action. Personal. Naomi's voice got colder. Tab 2. Statements from 5 other passengers who witnessed discrimination. Tab 5. 23 EOC complaints from your own employees. This isn't personal. It's pervasive. Robert Thornton, the COO, tried to downplay. Every airline has complaints. That's the nature of customer service. Hannah interrupted. Not like this. We compared your complaint rate to United Delta American Southwest. Atlantic has 340% more discrimination complaints per passenger mile than industry average. The room went silent. Numbers didn't lie. Sarah Mitchell, the HR expert, spoke quietly. If these numbers are accurate, we're not looking at a PR crisis. We're looking at failure at every level of human resources and training. Bernard tried to regain control. Ms. Cross, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll conduct a thorough internal investigation. No. Naomi's voice cut through like a blade. You've had 3 years to conduct internal investigations. They've been worthless. I'm not here to ask you to investigate yourselves. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen. Every eye in the room locked on her. She had their attention now. Naomi Cross stood at the head of the boardroom table and felt the power dynamics shift like tectonic plates beneath her feet. As of this morning, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Cross Technologies Venture Fund owns 4.7% of Apex Holdings. That gives me shareholder rights. I'm exercising Clause 14B emergency investigation with immediate suspension of implicated personnel pending review. Gerald Matthews, the corporate lawyer, jumped in. Ms. Cross, Clause 14B requires evidence of gross negligence or potential criminal violations. Hannah didn't let him finish. Which we have. Federal civil rights law violations. Video documentation from multiple sources. Witness testimony. Pattern of complaints suppressed through legally questionable non-disclosure agreements. Your office has been settling complaints and requiring NDAs potentially in violation of whistleblower protection statutes. Patricia Delgado, the chief legal officer, went pale. Gerald, is this true? Gerald shifted uncomfortably. We've settled complaints as standard risk mitigation practice. You've been silencing victims, Naomi said. There's a difference. And now the Department of Transportation is investigating. The NAACP has filed formal complaints. Senator Baldwin is introducing federal legislation. This isn't going away quietly. Victoria Chang, the CFO, leaned forward. Bernard, what's our liability exposure here? Bernard Ashford looked trapped. We'll need to calculate. I'll tell you, Victoria cut him off. Each of those 47 complaints could become a lawsuit now that the pattern is public. Class action potential. We're looking at $50 to $100 million minimum, plus DOT fines, plus reputation damage lasting years. Stock is already down over 9%. James Wilson, the investor representative, looked furious. This is exactly what institutional investors fear. We have a fiduciary duty to shareholders. This situation is destroying value. Then stop destroying value, Naomi said. Stop defending what's indefensible. Fire the people responsible. Implement real change. Or watch your company become a case study in how not to handle discrimination. Michael Harrison, the board chair, held up his hands. Ms. Cross, let's say we acknowledge there are problems that need addressing. What exactly are you proposing? Naomi gestured to tab 7 in the binders. Immediate termination of Flight 447 crew. Captain James Thornhill, Senior Flight Attendant, Jennifer Walsh, Ground Manager Tyler Bradford. Fired with cause. No severance beyond legal minimum. Captain Thornhill shot to his feet. This is outrageous. I have 28 years of service with this airline. Naomi turned to face him directly. You had 28 years of service. Past tense. You ended your career when you decided my skin color determined my seat assignment. Sit down, Captain. Or former Captain, I should say. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't angry, just absolutely certain. The kind of certainty that comes from knowing you're right and having the power to enforce it. Captain Thornhill sat down hard, his face red. Jennifer Walsh spoke up, tears forming. I was following protocol. Elite members have seating preferences. Show me that protocol, Naomi said. Show me where it's written that elite status overrides confirmed seat assignments. Show me the company policy that says you can remove paying passengers for not looking like they fit. Jennifer opened her mouth, closed it. There was no such policy. There never had been. It had been bias dressed up as procedure. Hannah stepped in. Ms. Walsh, we have audio of you calling security and specifying black female potentially aggressive when Ms. Cross had shown zero aggression. That alone is grounds for termination under federal discrimination law. Jennifer went silent, tears now streaming down her face. Naomi continued. Second requirement, removal of all executives who suppress discrimination complaints. That includes you, Gerald. Gerald Matthews sputtered. I have attorney-client privilege. You have an ethical obligation that you violated, Hannah said. You buried complaints to protect the company from liability instead of addressing the underlying discriminatory behavior. That's not legal counsel, that's enabling civil rights violations. Michael Harrison interjected. Ms. Cross, we can't simply fire our general counsel without due process. You can, and you will, Naomi said. Or, I go public with every complaint Gerald buried, every NDA he pushed through, every victim he silenced to protect corporate image. Your choice, Mr. Harrison, justice or exposure. Patricia Delgado. The actual CLO spoke up. Michael, if even half these allegations are accurate, Gerald has created massive liability for this company. We need to cut our losses. Bernard Ashford tried one more time. Ms. Cross, you're asking us to terminate people without proper investigation. Like you gave me proper investigation this morning. Naomi's voice could have cut glass. When you removed me from a flight without checking facts, without verifying claims, without giving me any opportunity to defend myself. You want to talk to me about due process. She let that hang in the air, then continued. Third creation of Independent Oversight Committee. Not internal, not controlled by Atlantic. Run by outside civil rights organization. Full audit of all policies, complaints, and training programs. Public quarterly reports. Robert Thornton shook his head. That's handing control of our internal operations to external groups. That's ensuring you're not investigating yourselves, Victoria Chang said. I support it. We've proven we can't be trusted to police our own discrimination. Sarah Mitchell nodded. I agree. As someone with 2 decades in HR, this is necessary. Naomi pressed forward. Fourth $100 million Diversity and Inclusion Fund. Not PR. Real money. Scholarships for aviation training in underrepresented communities. Partnerships with HBCUs. Investment in minority-owned travel businesses. James Wilson nearly choked. 100 million shareholders will never. Your market cap dropped $1.4 billion today, Naomi interrupted. 100 million is 7% of that loss. It's a bargain. Plus, it's tax deductible and positions you as leading industry reform. Your shareholders will recover faster with this than without it. Victoria Chang nodded slowly. She's right. From pure financial analysis, a 100 million fund shows leadership response to crisis. Could stabilize and recover stock price within weeks. 5th mandatory anti-bias training for all employees. Not online modules. Real training, in person, from qualified experts, with accountability measures. Sarah Mitchell was already nodding. That should have been standard already. I can develop the program with proper oversight. Sixth public apology, not a corporate statement. You, Bernard, on camera taking full responsibility, no passive voice. No mistakes were made. Active ownership. Bernard's face went through several emotions. I didn't personally. You're the CEO, Naomi said flatly. This happened on your watch. Culture flows from leadership. You own this whether you personally discriminated or not. Seventh compensation for affected passengers. Not just me. All 47 pending complaints. Full refunds plus $25,000 each. No NDAs. No silence clauses. Patricia winced. That's over $1 million in direct payouts. It's justice, Naomi said. And it's cheaper than the class action lawsuit you'll face if you don't address this proactively. Eighth, protection for whistleblowers. Carlos Reyes Rosa Martinez. Any employee who spoke truth to power, they get formal protections written into their employment contracts. Anyone retaliates against them gets fired immediately. No exceptions. Michael Harrison held up his hands. Ms. Cross, these are extensive requirements. They're not requirements, Naomi corrected. They're the minimum acceptable response. You have two options. Implement these changes starting immediately and begin rebuilding trust. Or refuse and watch me take this public. I have interviews lined up with every major news network. I have 8.4 million followers on social media. I have a platform, resources, and nothing to lose. She paused for effect. I didn't ask to become the face of airline discrimination. You made me that when you removed me from Flight 447. But now that I'm here, I'm going to make sure no one else has to experience what I did. Victoria Chang spoke first. I move. We vote on Ms. Cross's 8-point proposal. All points as written. Sarah Mitchell immediately seconded. I second that motion. Michael Harrison looked around the table, seeing control slip away. We should discuss each point separately, negotiate terms. We've been discussing this for years through buried complaints, Victoria said sharply. I'm calling the question. All in favor of implementing Ms. Cross's 8-point reform plan. 4 hands went up immediately. Victoria, Sarah, Patricia, and James Wilson. 4 votes. Need 5 for majority. Michael Harrison looked at the remaining board members. Robert Thornton was shaking his head. 2 other old guard members looked resistant. Naomi spoke into the silence. Let me make this simpler for anyone still unsure. I'm not just a shareholder. I'm a customer. I'm a woman of color with millions watching my next move. I'm a CEO with resources to wage a sustained campaign. I can make this company an example of how to handle discrimination correctly, or an example of what happens when you don't. Your stock price, your reputation, your DOT operating license, all of it hangs in the balance. She looked at each board member. But more than that, I can make flying on your airline either a symbol of supporting equality or a symbol of defending discrimination. Where do you want to be 6 months from now? A younger board member, a hedge fund representative, 41 years old, raised his hand. I vote yes. 5th vote. Majority achieved. Michael Harrison's shoulders sagged. The motion passes. 5 votes in favor. He turned to Gerald Matthews and the 3 crew members. You're all terminated immediately, effective this moment. Security will escort you from the building. Jennifer Walsh started crying harder. I have 2 children. How am I supposed to? Naomi's voice held zero sympathy. You should have thought about your children before you decided my skin color determined where I could sit. Actions have consequences. Security guards entered. 4 of them. Professional. Efficient? Gerald Matthews looked shell-shocked. Captain Thornhill's face was red with rage and humiliation. Tyler Bradford stared at the floor. Jennifer sobbed quietly. As they were let out, Captain Thornhill stopped at the door, looked back at Naomi. You've destroyed our lives today. Naomi met his eyes. No, Captain. You destroyed your own careers when you chose discrimination over decency. I just made sure you faced consequences for that choice." The door closed behind them. The boardroom exhaled. In the elevator going down, Naomi stood between Hannah and Elena. Silence for 10 floors. They were all processing what had just happened. Then Elena let out a breath. "You just dismantled an entire executive team in under an hour." Hannah shook her head almost admiringly. "That was the most aggressive shareholder action I've ever witnessed, and I've seen hostile takeovers." Naomi felt exhaustion starting to seep in. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was ebbing. It worked because we were right, and because they were more scared of continued stock decline than they were of me. "They should be scared of you," Elena said. "You have leverage now. They implement those reforms or face public exposure that'll crater their stock another 20%. The elevator reached the lobby. Through the glass doors, Naomi could see news vans, reporters with cameras. Someone had leaked that she was in the building. "Back exit," Hannah suggested. "No," Naomi said. "Front door. I'm not hiding. I did nothing wrong." Stepping outside, reporters immediately swarmed. "Ms. Cross. What happened in the board meeting? Did they apologize? Are you satisfied with the outcome? Will you sue?" Naomi stopped, held up one hand for quiet. The crowd settled. Atlantic Airways has agreed to implement comprehensive reforms. Terminations have been made. Policies will change. An independent oversight committee will be established. Full details will be announced by the company shortly. Are you satisfied someone called out? I'm gratified that they chose accountability over defensiveness. But my work isn't done. This isn't about one airline or one incident. It's about an industry that's been failing passengers of color for decades. Change is coming." She walked away before more questions could come. A black SUV was waiting at the curb. The driver, a black man, probably in his 50s, turned as she got in. "Ms. Cross, everyone's talking about you today. I just want to say thank you. My daughter Keisha was removed from a flight 2 years ago. Same situation, different airline. She didn't have your resources to fight back. So thank you for doing it for her." Naomi felt her throat tighten. "Tell Keisha she's the reason I did this. Her and everyone like her." In the car, her phone was exploding. News alerts. Breaking Atlantic Airways announces leadership changes following emergency board meeting. Atlantic's statement was already out. After careful review of recent events and shareholder input, Apex Holdings announces immediate leadership changes at Atlantic Airways. Captain James Thornhill, Senior Flight Attendant, Jennifer Walsh, and Ground Services Manager Tyler Bradford have been terminated effective immediately. General Counsel Gerald Matthews has resigned. Additionally, Atlantic Airways commits to comprehensive reforms, including $100 million Diversity and Inclusion Fund, Independent Oversight Committee, full policy audit, mandatory employee training and compensation for affected passengers. We acknowledge that recent events revealed failures in our company culture that must be addressed. We commit to doing better." Elena read it and smirked. "They're trying to make it sound voluntary, making it look like their idea." "Let them," Naomi said. "Results matter more than credit." A text from Carlos Reyes, Ms. Cross. "They just promoted me to lead flight attendant, and Rosa is now senior gate agent." "Thank you. You didn't have to do that," Naomi replied. "You stood up when others stayed silent. That deserves recognition." Text from Kenneth Wright. "I've been waiting 50 years to see accountability like this. Thank you for not backing down." Text from Sandra Price. "You did it. You actually did it. My daughters watched the whole thing unfold. They asked if you were a superhero. I told them you're better. You're real." A video message from her mother. Diana Cross, 67 years old, still in Charlotte, still in the house where Naomi had grown up. "Baby, I saw the news. I knew when they kicked you off that plane they'd picked the wrong woman. I taught you to stand up. You did that today, not just for yourself, for everyone. I'm so proud. Your father would be proud too." Naomi watched the video 3 times. The first time, she'd let emotion crack through all day. Tears on her face in the back of a car in Manhattan, thinking about her mother working 3 jobs, thinking about all the times Diana had stood tall in the face of disrespect, thinking about the legacy of strength she'd inherited. The car pulled up to her hotel. 4 Seasons, Midtown. Doorman opened her door. "Ms. Cross, we've heard about your day. We've upgraded your room to a suite. Complimentary, just our way of saying welcome." In the elevator to her room, Naomi caught her reflection in the mirrored wall. She looked tired. Her blazer was wrinkled. Her hair was coming loose from its pins. But her eyes were clear. She'd started this morning being kicked off a plane. She was ending it having changed company policy, fired the people responsible, and set in motion industry-wide reforms. One day. One fight. One woman refusing to accept injustice. Her mother's words echoed, "Don't let them make you smaller than you are." She hadn't. She wouldn't. And neither would anyone who came after her. The next morning, Atlantic Airways held a press conference at their headquarters in Atlanta, Public Plaza outside the building, 10 a.m., 200 reporters, cameras from every major network. Bernard Ashford stood at the podium, and he looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. The confidence from boardrooms and investor calls was gone, replaced by a man who knew he was about to eat crow in front of the entire world. Yesterday morning, he began his voice carrying across the plaza. Something happened that should never have happened on any Atlantic Airways aircraft. Ms. Naomi Cross, a paying passenger with a confirmed first-class seat assignment, was removed from Flight 447. This occurred because our crew made assumptions based on appearance rather than facts. It happened because we've allowed a culture that tolerates bias instead of confronting it. He paused. The words were clearly difficult. Good. I want to be absolutely clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a miscommunication. It was discrimination. And it happened under my leadership. As CEO, I take full responsibility. Behind the cameras, Naomi stood with Hannah and Elena. She'd deliberately chosen not to be on stage. This wasn't her apology to give. This was Bernard's accountability moment. He needed to own it alone. Bernard continued listing the 8-point plan, each reform detailed, timeline provided, financial commitments specified. No weasel words. No, we'll look into it. Concrete actions with concrete deadlines. Then he said the words that would be clipped and shared and quoted for years. But more than policy changes, we need cultural change. We need to acknowledge that flying while Black or Hispanic or any minority identity has been unnecessarily difficult for too long. The woman we removed yesterday was right. She shouldn't have had to fight for a seat she paid for. No one should. We failed her. We've failed others. That ends now. Reporter questions came rapid fire. Will you resign, Bernard? That's a decision for the board, but I'm committed to seeing these reforms through. If I'm the right person to lead that change, I'll stay. If not, I'll step aside. What matters is the reforms happen. Is this enough, Bernard? No. But it's a start. Real change takes time. We're committed to that time and that work. What about the other airlines, United, Delta, American, Bernard? We can only control our actions. But I hope our peers see this as an industry challenge, not just an Atlantic problem. After Bernard left the podium, reporters spotted Naomi. They rushed toward her. She stepped forward. Elena had coached her. Keep it short. Lead with gratitude. End with vision. 24 hours ago, I was removed from Flight 447 for asking for the seat I paid for. Today, that airline is implementing the most comprehensive anti-discrimination reforms in industry history. That's not because of me alone. That's because of everyone who watched that video and said not anymore. 8 million people viewed that footage. Thousands shared their own stories. Employees spoke up. Passengers became witnesses. That collective voice created this change. A reporter called out, "Are you satisfied?" Naomi chose her words carefully. "I'm gratified by yesterday's actions. But satisfaction comes when I can fly anywhere anytime and know my skin color won't determine my treatment. We're closer to that. We're not there yet. What's next for you? I'm launching the Equity in Travel Foundation, using Cross Technologies resources to monitor discrimination across airlines, hotels, and travel services. We'll publish quarterly reports. We'll provide free legal help to travelers facing discrimination. We'll hold companies accountable. Because what happened to me happens every single day. We're going to make it visible, and we're going to make it stop. United Delta American have all released statements supporting anti-discrimination policies. Will you push them to adopt Atlantic's reforms? I won't have to push. Market pressure will drive change. Passengers will choose airlines that treat them with respect. The companies that adapt will thrive. The ones that don't will answer to their shareholders and the traveling public. Do you forgive Captain Thornhill and the crew? Naomi paused. This question was a trap. Answer yes, and she looks weak. Answer no, and she looks vindictive. Forgiveness is personal. What I wanted was accountability. They faced consequences for their actions. That's not about forgiveness or revenge. It's about ensuring actions have meaning. Has David Whitmore, the passenger who took your seat, commented, "No"? And I don't expect him to. People like Mr. Whitmore rarely apologize for taking what they felt entitled to. But his silence speaks clearly. The reporters went quiet. They all knew she was right. One more question. What would you say to other people of color who face discrimination while traveling? Naomi looked directly at the camera, spoke to everyone watching. Document it. Record it if you can safely do so. Report it to the airline and the DOT. Contact my foundation. Don't stay silent. Every time someone speaks up, it becomes harder for companies to ignore the pattern. Your voice matters, your worth matters, and you have people standing with you now. She walked away from the podium. Elena handed her phone. Already trending hashtag equity in travel, hashtag Naomi Cross, hashtag flight reform. But more importantly, trending stories about other people's experiences. Hundreds of travelers sharing their own stories of discrimination, creating a record, building evidence. The movement was bigger than one incident now. It was becoming infrastructure for change. 6 months after Flight 447, Carlos Reyes stood in front of 200 flight attendants in Atlantic's new training facility. "Good morning. I'm Carlos Reyes, lead flight attendant. 6 months ago, I watched a passenger be removed from first class because of her skin color. I stayed silent. I was scared. That silence is why we're here today. The new mandatory training program, Respect in Flight, developed by Sarah Mitchell in partnership with civil rights organizations. Every Atlantic employee required to attend. In person. No online shortcuts. We're going to watch the video from Flight 447. It's uncomfortable. It should be. Because it shows what happens when we don't question our assumptions. The video played, Naomi standing calmly, Jennifer calling security, Captain Thornhill never checking David Whitmore's boarding pass. The escalation. The removal. Carlos paused it at key moments. What could we have done differently here? A young flight attendant, Hispanic woman 24, raised her hand. Check both boarding passes. Not just hers. Exactly. Don't assume the person who looks like they've been flying first class for years is right. An older attendant. Call a supervisor before escalating to security. Yes. De-escalation, not escalation. Another, ask myself, would I treat a white passenger the same way? Carlos nodded. That's the critical question. If the answer is no, you're discriminating. The same young attendant who'd spoken first told a story. Last week I had a similar situation. Elite passenger in wrong seat. He was white. Assigned passenger was black. I checked both boarding passes. Elite passenger was wrong. I made him move. He complained to my supervisor. She paused. My supervisor backed me up. Told him policy is policy. That's the culture change. The room applauded. Atlanta to New York, Tuesday morning. First-class cabin. Same route as Flight 447. A young black woman, early 20s, casual business attire, approached seat 1A. A white passenger was already seated there. The new flight attendant, Jennifer's replacement, approached immediately. "Excuse me, sir, may I see your boarding pass?" Checked both passes. He was in 1B. She was in 1A. "Sir, you're one seat over. 1B is on the aisle here." "Oh, my mistake. Sorry about that." He moved. No argument, no assumption of priority, just a simple correction. The young black woman sat down. The flight attendant smiled. "Welcome aboard. Can I get you anything?" Treated her exactly like every other passenger. No surprise, no suspicion, just service. The young woman pulled out her phone, texted her mother. "Mom, they just treated me like I fit, like it was normal." Is this what it's supposed to feel like? Naomi's Foundation 6 months after launch. 15 employees, office in downtown Atlanta, mission monitor and report discrimination in travel industry, team meeting, large screen showing quarterly report. Dr. James Chen, Asian American Chief Data Officer, presented findings. Discrimination complaints across industry. Atlantic Airways down 73% since reforms. United Delta American all implemented similar training. Industry-wide complaints down 41%. But he continued Southwest, Spirit, JetBlue lagging. They need pressure, Maria Santos, Hispanic Director of Advocacy, reported next. We've received 4,700 incident reports through our app in 6 months. Most common issues: racial profiling at security, language discrimination, accessibility bias against disabled passengers. Publishing full report next week with airline-by-airline breakdowns. Kenneth Wright, now on the Foundation's advisory board, spoke. The DOT has used our data in 3 enforcement actions. We're becoming the standard for accountability. Text arrived for Naomi. From Carlos, Ms. Cross, thought you'd want to know. 0 discrimination complaints on my flights in 6 months. The training works. 2,000 attendees. Naomi giving keynote. 6 months ago, I was removed from a plane. Today I'm supposed to talk about how I turned that into activism. But that's the wrong story. She paused, letting the crowd lean in. The real heroes are Rosa Martinez, the gate agent who documented everything. Carlos Reyes, who finally found his voice. Sandra Price, who recorded when others looked away. Kenneth Wright, who offered his legal expertise. They didn't have platforms or resources. They just had courage. Standing ovation. My mother worked 3 jobs, never flew first class. But she taught me that respect isn't about where you sit. It's about refusing to be treated as less than human. When I stood in that aisle, I wasn't fighting for a seat. I was honoring everyone who'd been told they didn't fit. A young woman, 19, raised her hand. Ms. Cross. I'm a college student. I can barely afford economy. How does your fight help people like me? Because this isn't about first class. It's about respect. Whether you're in row 1 or row 30, you deserve to be treated with humanity. The reforms apply to every seat. The oversight applies to every passenger. And my foundation offers free legal help to any traveler facing discrimination. You shouldn't need money or connections to get justice. 6 months later, David Whitmore eating lunch alone at his country club in Connecticut. Members who used to join him now avoided his table. His face had been in all those videos, his smug expression sitting in Naomi's seat, his comment about people knowing their place. He'd become the face of entitled privilege. Business consequences piled up like unpaid bills. 3 major real estate deals had fallen through. Partners were distancing themselves. Associates weren't returning calls. His company lost contracts with diversity-conscious clients who didn't want the association. His wife, Margaret, had filed for divorce 3 months ago. Their daughter, Emily, 15 years old, had seen the videos at school. Her classmates had shown her, had asked why her father was that guy. Emily had come home in tears. "Daddy, why were you so mean to that lady?" "She just wanted to sit down," David had tried to explain. "It's complicated, sweetheart. There were circumstances." No, Emily had said. "It's not complicated. You took her seat. You were mean, and you didn't even apologize." Out of the mouths of teenagers came truth he couldn't face. Margaret's lawyer had cited irreconcilable differences and public embarrassment in the divorce filing. Translation: I don't want to be married to the face of racism. Atlantic Airways had banned him for life. His Diamond Elite status, cultivated over 6 years, revoked. The arrangement for Seat 1A void. The special treatment gone. Other airlines had quietly flagged his account. Not banned, they couldn't coordinate that legally, but his elite status applications kept getting reviewed and delayed. He pulled out his phone. Twitter mentions 89,341. He'd stopped reading them months ago, but he knew what they said. This is the face of everyday entitlement. Boomer taking what isn't his. He sat there sipping champagne while they dragged her off. His daughter must be so ashamed. That last one cut deepest because it was true. David had drafted an apology statement 17 times, deleted it 17 times. Any apology now looked self-serving. Too little, too late. He'd had his chance to speak up on that plane. He'd chosen silence. Now silence was all he had left. His lawyer had advised against apologizing. It could be seen as admission of liability. Liability for what? For being an entitled jerk, for taking a seat that wasn't his, for watching a woman be humiliated and doing nothing. No lawyer could protect him from the truth. 6 months unemployed. Jennifer Walsh sat in her small apartment on the outskirts of Atlanta, scrolling through job listings she knew she'd never get. Every airline had her on a watch list. Her name was permanently linked to Flight 447. Google, Jennifer Walsh flight attendant, and the first page was all negative results. She'd tried using her middle name, Jennifer Ann, on applications. Tried leaving employment dates vague. Tried everything. Last week's job interview at a retail store. Manager Jennifer Walsh. "Are you the one from that video, Jennifer?" "Yes, but I can explain." Manager. "I don't think this is the right fit. We serve a diverse customer base." Her sister had called yesterday. "Jen, maybe you should move. Start fresh somewhere else. Change your name legally." Jennifer had considered it. Jennifer Morrison. Jennifer Andrews. Something common. Something ungoogleable. But running wouldn't erase the video. The internet was forever. She was forever that flight attendant who called security, who specified black female potentially aggressive, who chose to believe the white passenger without question. Her 2 children, ages 8 and 10, had questions she couldn't answer. "Mommy, why did you lose your job?" "I made a mistake, honey." "What kind of mistake?" How do you explain racial bias to an 8-year-old? How do you tell your child that you were the bad guy in a story that millions of people watched? She'd tried therapy. The therapist had asked, "Do you understand what you did wrong?" "I followed protocol," Jennifer had said automatically. Was it protocol? Or was it bias? That question sat in her chest like a stone. Because the truth was, there was no protocol that said elite members could take other people's seats. That had been her assumption. Her bias. Her choice. She watched TV sometimes, saw news stories about Atlantic's reforms, saw Carlos Reyes, who used to be junior to her now lead flight attendant, interviewed about the culture change. "We're building something better," Carlos said on screen. They'd moved on without her. She was replaceable, forgettable. except in the one context where she'd never be forgotten as the villain of Flight 447. 6 months, 363 job applications, 2 interviews, 0 offers. Actions she was learning had consequences. James Thornhill stood in a small flight simulator training a nervous student pilot to handle crosswind landings. This was his life now, not commanding a 787 with 300 passengers, not flying transcontinental routes, not wearing the uniform with 4 stripes that had defined him for 28 years. Now he taught weekend pilots how to land Cessnas. His FAA license had been suspended pending ethics review. Pattern of passenger complaints, they'd said. Multiple incidents of questionable judgment. He could reapply in a year. Maybe get it back, maybe not. His pension was affected. His retirement timeline destroyed. His reputation in aviation circles ruined. Last month, his son had visited. James Jr., 28, worked at Google in San Francisco. Smart kid, good heart. Nothing like his father. Dad, I saw the video in a training at work. Implicit bias workshop. They used you as an example. James had felt his chest tighten. What did they say? That you made assumptions based on race. That you never questioned your own judgment. That you had authority without accountability. James Jr. had paused. Were they right? That question. That simple, devastating question. James had spent 6 months thinking about it. 6 months of sleepless nights. 6 months of watching his marriage strain under the weight of his choices. 6 months of seeing his face in articles about discrimination. Yes, he'd finally said. They were right. I looked at her, and I saw what I expected to see. Not what was there. I saw a black woman and assumed she was lying. I saw a white man and assumed he was telling the truth. I didn't check, didn't verify, didn't question. His son had nodded slowly. So what are you going to do about it? That was the real question, wasn't it? Acknowledging the problem was step 1. Fixing himself was the lifetime of work that followed. James had started attending workshops on racial bias, started reading books he should have read decades ago, started finally doing the work. But the cost of learning had been his career, his reputation, his certainty about who he was. He was 54 years old, starting over, humbled, changed. Maybe he thought watching his student struggle with the simulator controls, maybe that was the point. 6 months later, Atlanta Airport, Naomi at Delta Gate. She still wouldn't fly Atlantic, matter of principle. Flight to London for tech conference. First-class ticket seat 1A. Always 1A, now principal. Gate agent recognized her. Ms. Cross, we're honored to have you flying with us. Boarding. Multiple passengers recognized her. Some nodded respectfully. Some wanted to thank her. Young black girl, maybe 12, with her mother. Mom, that's the lady from the video. Mother, yes, sweetheart. Girl approached. Excuse me, are you Ms. Cross? I am. I wrote about you for my school project, about standing up for yourself. You're my hero. Naomi felt unexpected emotion. What's your name? Destiny. Destiny, the real heroes are people who speak up when they see something wrong, people who don't stay silent. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Then you're going to be someone's hero too. On plane. First class cabin. Seat 1A. Flight attendant, white male, 40s. Welcome aboard, Ms. Cross. Anything you need, just let me know. Normal service. No side-eye, no assumptions, just normal. Naomi settled in, pulled out laptop. Working on equity in Travel Foundation quarterly report. Email from Hannah Atlantic's stock fully recovered. Up 12% since reforms announced. Turns out ethics is good business. Email from Elena. Your NAACP keynote got 4.2 million views. Messages pouring in from travelers sharing their stories. Email from Carlos. Just finished training 50 new attendants. Every one of them knows your story. They won't make our mistake. Plane took off. Naomi watched Atlanta shrink below. Thought about her mother. Everyone told they don't fit. How 6 months ago she'd been on a plane being told to give up her seat. Now she flew without question. Sat in 1A without justification. Existed in any space without proving her worth. That was the real victory. Not revenge. Not even the reforms. But freedom. Freedom to exist without constantly defending your right to exist. Sunday afternoon. Naomi drove to Charlotte to visit her mother. Diana still lived in the same small house where Naomi had grown up, refused to move even when Naomi offered to buy her something bigger. "This house has my memories," Diana always said. "I'm not leaving them." Kitchen scene. Diana making Sunday dinner. Collard greens simmering. Fried chicken cooling. Cornbread in the oven. The smells of Naomi's childhood. Naomi sat at the table peeling potatoes. Same task she'd done at 10 years old. Some traditions mattered. "You done fighting airlines now?" Diana asked, stirring her greens. "I don't know if I'll ever be done." Diana turned to look at her. "Baby, you can't carry everyone's pain. You'll break." "Mama, how did you do it?" 3 jobs, always tired, people treating you like you were less than. How did you keep going?" Diana set down her spoon, came to sit across from Naomi at the worn kitchen table. "Because I had you. I needed you to see that being black doesn't mean being less. That hard work matters. That respect isn't negotiable." She reached across to take Naomi's hand. "You think I didn't want to break? I broke plenty, just not in front of you. I cried in the shower. I cried in my car before going to work. I cried a lot, baby." This was news to Naomi. "You never told me. Didn't need to. You saw the strength. That's what mattered. You learned to stand up by watching me refuse to bow down." They sat in silence, hands clasped, while the collard greens bubbled and the cornbread baked and life continued its ordinary rhythm despite everything that had happened. "That video of you on that plane," Diana said, "when they walked you off. You know what I saw. What I saw your composure. I saw you not crying. I saw you treating them with more respect than they gave you. And I knew every sacrifice I made was worth it, because I raised a woman who knows her worth." Naomi felt tears she'd been holding for 6 months finally break through. "Mama, come here." They hugged in the kitchen while dinner cooked, just mother and daughter. The woman who'd taught strength and the woman who'd defended it. "Was it worth it?" Diana asked when they pulled apart. "All the fighting, all the stress." Naomi thought about Carlos getting promoted. Rosa recognized. Young Destiny calling her a hero. 73% reduction in complaints. Industry-wide changes. Thousands of future travelers who'd never experienced what she had. "Yeah, Mama, it was worth it." Diana nodded. "Good. Now set the table. Your brother's coming over. Back to normal. Back to family. Back to what actually mattered." That night, lying in her childhood bedroom, Diana had kept it exactly the same posters of Mae Jemison and Katherine Johnson still on the walls. Naomi checked her phone. Message from unknown number Ms. Cross. "You don't know me. Teresa Gonzalez. 3 months ago, Southwest bumped me from my seat. Hispanic woman. They said operational needs. But I watched them give it to a white businessman. Because of your foundation, I reported it. Southwest investigated. Gate agent was fired. They compensated me. But more than that, they listened. Thank you for making it safe to speak up." Naomi read it twice. This is why. Not the viral videos, not the press conferences. Teresa Gonzalez getting justice. Message from Sandra Price. Naomi, I've been thinking about Flight 447, about how I almost didn't record. almost stayed quiet. But you taught me silence is complicity. I've spoken up 4 times since then when I saw injustice. Small things, but I spoke up. Thank you for showing me courage is a choice. Message from Kenneth Wright. Young lady, I'm 67. I've been fighting this fight since before you were born. Won some, lost more. But what you did, you made people care. You made the invisible visible. That's what we could never quite do. Thank you for finishing what my generation started. Naomi felt the weight of continuity. She wasn't the first, wouldn't be the last. But she was part of a chain, a movement, something larger than one person's fight. She thought about what she'd tell her younger self, the 9-year-old at the pool, the 14-year-old followed in stores, the 17-year-old accused of cheating, the 22-year-old at MIT, the 28-year-old building a company to prove she fit. She'd tell her, "You're going to spend your life proving you fit. It'll be exhausting. But one day you'll stop trying to fit in and start demanding spaces make room for you. And when that happens, you won't just change your life. You'll change the whole structure." She'd tell her, "The fight is worth it. Not because you'll win every battle, but because standing up makes it easier for the next person to stand too." She'd tell her mama is right. Respect is not negotiable. Not for comfort, not for peace, not for fitting in. Never. Last thought before sleep. 6 months ago, she was escorted off a plane, humiliated in front of strangers, told she didn't fit. Today, she ran a foundation changing an industry. She'd fired the people responsible. She'd created protection for future travelers. She'd honored her mother's sacrifices. She'd proved that standing firm matters, but more than that, she could fly without fear, could sit in 1A without justifying it, could exist in first class in any space without proving her worth. That was the real victory. Not revenge. Not even recognition. Freedom. Freedom to exist without question. Freedom to be accepted without justification. Freedom to be seen as human first. She fell asleep in her childhood bed, in her mother's house, where she learned to stand up, where she learned that respect was something you claimed, not something you begged for, where she learned being black wasn't a limitation, it was a legacy of strength. Atlantic Airways Flight 447, same route. 1-year anniversary of the incident. Morning flight, Atlanta to New York. First class seat 1A. A young black woman college student, 21 years old, first time in first class. She'd won a scholarship from the Equity and Travel Foundation. Trip to New York for an internship interview at a tech company. Nervous but excited. Carlos Reyes, now senior flight attendant, approached with a warm smile. "Good morning. First time in first class." "That obvious. Just good energy." "Welcome aboard. I'm Carlos. Anything you need, just ask." "Thank you. This is such a big deal for me." "It should be. You earned it. Enjoy every moment." Captain's voice over intercom. "Good morning. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell speaking." Yes, Sarah Mitchell from the board. She'd always wanted to fly. Atlantic paid for her training as part of the reforms. Now she piloted this route. "Welcome aboard Flight 447. Beautiful morning for flying." In seat 1B sat Kenneth Wright. Still flew this route regularly, still watched, still ready to speak up if needed. But hadn't needed to in a year. He saw the young student in 1A, smiled, remembering. In seat 3A, Sandra Price. She made this flight monthly, always watched, always ready to document. But the culture had changed. Documentation was becoming history, not necessity. The plane pushed back from the gate. Smooth departure, no drama, no discrimination, just a flight. That was the epilogue. Not every flight needed a hero moment, because the real victory was when respect became default, when equality was ordinary, when a young black woman could sit in 1A and nobody questioned it, when the fight that was once necessary became simply history, when progress was so embedded that people forgot there was ever another way. The student pulled out her laptop, opened her scholarship acceptance letter, read the signature Naomi Cross Founder Equity and Travel Foundation, whispered, "Thank you." And somewhere in Atlanta, in her office at Cross Technologies, Naomi received a notification, Flight 447 departed on time. 0 incidents reported. She smiled, closed the notification, went back to work. Because that was the real happy ending. Not revenge, not punishment, not even recognition. Just peace. The peace of knowing the next generation could fly freely. The peace of structural change. The peace of justice done. The peace of a world where a young woman named Destiny could board a plane, sit in any seat she'd paid for, and simply exist. Without fear, without question, without having to prove she fit. That was worth fighting for. That was worth 6 months of headlines and stress and board meetings and uncomfortable conversations. That was worth every single moment of standing in an aisle, refusing to move, insisting on respect. Because now nobody else would have to. And that's the end of our story today. But before you go, I need to ask you something important. If this story moved you, if Naomi's fight for respect resonated with you, if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with humanity regardless of their skin color, please hit that like button right now. Your like tells YouTube to share this story with more people who need to hear it, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We share powerful stories of justice, courage, and people standing up for what's right. Stories that inspire, stories that matter, stories that remind us all that change is possible when we refuse to stay silent. Most importantly, share this video. Share it with someone who's ever been told they don't fit. Share it with someone who needs to know their worth isn't up for debate. Share it with someone fighting their own battle for respect. Your share could be the encouragement they need today. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when others tried to make you feel small? Your story matters. Your voice matters. And this community is here to support you. Remember what Naomi's mother taught her. Don't let them make you smaller than you are. Stand tall. Know your worth. And never ever accept less than the respect you deserve. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of the change we need to see in this world. Until next time, keep standing up for what's right.